Okay, we're recording, and let me put it on to live on FB. Bibbidi bobbidi boop. Okay. So give that one moment. I'll know to do this first next time.
Yeah, no worries. I do this often, so it's no big deal.
Okay.
Take your time, man.
Okay. La, 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 la. If it doesn't work, I'll just do it on Zoom and edit the front part of it out. When I transfer it, I can put it on YouTube.
Yeah, we can also swap it over to mine because I can go live on your timeline so you can host the whole thing.
Okay.
So we've got options.
Okay, I love options. All right, well, I'm going to click this then. Go live. There we are. We're in business. Okay, so this is Lou Martin, and I'm here with my new friend and a fascinating chap who's got an incredible story to tell. And this is Reverend Matthew. Matthew, how are you today, buddy?
I'm doing well, thanks, Lou. You know, despite circumstances with my fiance, we were together for 5 years. She passed away almost 3 weeks ago, coming this Saturday. So obviously that's been on my mind. It's been on my heart. But you know, I've been given a mission to share what I've learned in terms of my spiritual experiences, not only over the last 10 years or so, but really in the last 3-4 months during her terminal cancer illness.
Yeah. So tell us about Gail and your spiritual studies and how these things have suddenly come together in a whole new way.
So, I mean, my spiritual journey's been very, I'll call it slow and steady. It's been a lot of studying for sure,
Right.
but also really being drawn into it and knowing that there's something there, but not necessarily having a tangible experience, but just having an inner knowing that there's some kind of connection to this other side, to the spiritual realm.
Right.
Then that started in 2010. Even prior to that, fast forward to 2015 when I met my beloved fiance Gail, and that was like putting my foot on the gas pedal, just super accelerated, high energy. She's always been really intuitive, psychically connected, really in tune with spirit, but almost to a degree like unconsciously competent. Like she didn't even know how tuned in she was. Like some people that are sometimes the most spiritual don't even identify as being spiritual, which I find fascinating.
Sure, it's second nature.
And and I mean, she talked to her spirit guides and that sort of thing for sure, but it was just like she grew up that way. So so we went through, some great times, had our challenges, had a couple breakdowns where we thought maybe we'll go our separate ways, and something always drew us back together. And that happened a couple times in some seemingly really productive ways. And then I think maybe the third time that happened, it was actually her diagnosis with breast cancer in the fall of 2018.
Okay.
And that was a really pivotal moment, really for both of us. But in the case of my journey, it brought up so much emotion. And I mean, to just be completely transparent, my initial reaction was like anger. I was angry at her because I knew that, she in the level of form here, and I've soon, recently realized how it really all works, but in the level of form, she wasn't having the best lifestyle in terms of food. She struggled with food addiction her whole life, really.
Okay.
And she knew it wasn't healthy, but there was that part of her that just couldn't stop. And then, so I'm like, man, like, you know, all the self-development stuff about being responsible for your choices and your actions, and all that got thrown at me, and anger was my response initially.
Sure.
And, you
Sure.
know, so I, you know, took it upon myself to work on that, realizing it's ultimately not about her, it's about me.
Yes, that's the tough one.
That was
That's the tough one,
challenging. I mean,
yeah.
it's easy from where I am now, but when I was in it a couple of years back, no,
Sure.
year and a half
Sure.
ago, no way.
Sure.
Um,
Well,
but yeah, so
when we care about another, of course, we're upset if they're not caring about themselves in a way that we can, you know, feel safe with.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's challenging. I'm not going to say it's easy by any means. That was a very
Yeah.
challenging time, but I, you know, I worked my way through it, and you know, I was able to come out and just being an outstanding partner for her,
Right.
and just provide everything I could. I gave it 110%,
Right.
and it brought us closer. And it was actually after, because she had a single mastectomy. She tried a lot of alternative stuff, and it didn't really stick. It was a really aggressive form of cancer as well.
Okay.
In June 2019, she had early June, she had a single mastectomy. They got clear margins on the tumor. It was known from a few different sources that the cancer's gone. To the best of anyone's knowledge, it's gone.
Sure. Sure.
So we're like, okay, hallelujah, that's great.
Right.
Getting on with our lives. We decided we'd get married either in 2020 or 2021. We were both in the midst of kind of getting a business going. Gail was about 20 years older than me.
Okay.
But you never know that, you know, being in her presence, you know, she was full of energy and
And
life.
you're a very mature young man, my friend. So that works out nicely. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a good balance there, right?
Right. Right.
So we said, yeah, like, you know, she was kind of starting a brand new life because she was married for 23 years, of which it was not really being her true self. I mean, it was a loving marriage because she brought so much love to it, but it wasn't really nurturing her soul, so to speak, in
Sure.
some respects.
Sure.
So she had broken free of a past life essentially, and was
Yeah.
starting fresh, and, you know, starting to get into it, and
Right.
working she pretty well recovered after 2 months, which was pretty quick.
Yeah. From the surgery,
Um,
you're saying now.
yeah, the
Okay.
single mastectomy, and she
Yeah.
went through the chemotherapy,
Okay.
which is, whoa,
Yeah.
oh
Brutal.
man, yeah. I'll reserve my comments on that
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
but really intense.
Sure.
Um, so, you know, and then December came of 2019, and we had some great times. We even got to go on a kind of a retreat together in mid-December.
Right.
But then right around Christmas, she started having some bone pain, and it was misdiagnosed initially, so we didn't actually find out that it was cancer for like a month and a half, 2 months after the fact.
Right. Right.
But, you know, like 2 months time from like early February to mid-April, I mean, that was
A lot of
when she
time.
was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's when my spiritual growth just went through the roof, because
Okay.
I'm like, you know,
Okay.
what do I do? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I have all these tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me really amp it up. And I was having a theme of anger's been with me my whole life, and it was
Sure.
coming up again when she first went into the hospital. Not about her, but just in general with irritation. I've been staying here with her mom, and, you know, there's a whole dynamic there where there was like, you know, she was in high anxiety, and then I was in anger. And Gail later wrote in her journal that she viewed it as like an Abbott and Costello comedy act.
Sure. Well, it's nice you can count on some things, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just said, hey, I can't keep responding this way.
Yeah.
So I went again into the work
Okay.
of one of my, you know, ethereal mentors, Lester Levinson.
Yes.
Learning how to release, you know, the emotions. It's all energy. I mean, yeah, the grieving, losing a loved one in physical form, that's all heavy duty stuff for sure.
Sure.
But, you know, I dug in and started letting go. First, the anger went, and that was good. And
Right.
I was talking to Gail every day, and then,
Right.
you know, eventually, she's getting moved around to different rooms in the hospital, and she had about 3 surgeries, and you know, we're talking every day. And then the phone calls were getting, it hit a point where the phone calls were kind of getting shorter and shorter, because there was a point where we thought hope, like, oh, seems like they got the pain under control. And then a day or two later, it was out of control again. And
Sure.
it's kind of at that point where the phone calls started getting shorter and shorter. And
Right.
I didn't know, you know, what was going on. I mean, I knew she had tumors all over, but we were focused on some certain ones that they could actually maybe do something about in the hospital.
Yeah.
The other ones were just like on the back burner. We're like, okay, can't even think about it because there's nothing that can be done.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, it's a tough struggle, cancer. It's really brutal.
It's to watch someone go through it and watch their body, what happens. It's like, wow. But it was right around about a week before she passed. So this would have been like April 11th or something like that of this year, 2020. And she could no longer really use her phone. So we went for like 4 or 5 days. I was calling her, texting her, no response. And then I find out from her son, who was in contact with the nurse there, he was the kind of power of attorney. So the nurses were speaking directly to him first, and find out she's not really cognizant anymore. She can't operate her phone. And that was when it like, whew, just hit me like a truck.
Sure.
And so that one was tough. I mean, I've, just, crying, tears, sadness, like, oh, like, wow, I didn't know that was in me. I didn't know that was in me.
Yeah.
But it came out big time for about a week. It was, whew.
Right.
But then the day before she passed, well, actually 2 days before she passed, and her mom has been psychically connected most of her life. And that's kind of their culture. They're from South Africa.
Okay.
Just with the kind of, it's not that she's from a tribal community, but that heritage, they're just more in tune with that stuff.
Yeah.
But her mom never really developed it, but it's always been there. So 2 days before she passed, her mom woke up at like 3 a.m, that time where the subconscious is supposedly most active. Yeah. And she heard Gail's voice distinctly wake her up saying, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom." Right. And she used to do that. She'd come over to the house. Right. And if her mom was still sleeping, she'd just check in the room, say, "Hi, Mom." If she didn't wake up, she'd, go about her business. Yeah. And so at that point, it did cross my mind, although I was in resistance to the idea, but it crossed my mind that she was like crossing over. Sure. Now, just kind of came crossing over. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I was, pretty still sad at that point.
Of course.
Then the next morning, the Friday morning, at like 5 a.m., my laptop turns on, and like it's kind of done stuff like that in the past, but it started playing a YouTube video as well, and it's never done that.
Okay. Gets your attention.
And it was a YouTube video related to the course that I put out, which is now called Voice to Spirit. At the time, it was going to be based around spirituality for beginners, and it was related to that. So there was kind of the theme there.
Yes.
And it was 5 a.m. I didn't want to get up and turn off my computer because I didn't want to disturb my sleep further. So I'm like, okay, I'll just wait it out. It finished. And then when it finished, I got this download of information. And initially it was just kind of my own thoughts because I was dealing with a situation with her mom the day previous where I'm like, okay, how do I, conversate this? How do I organize this? How do I communicate this? So it came to me in the form of kind of like, I'll write her a letter. And, she can probably respond to it in a better way. And then
that's good.
As I was thinking about that, it became apparent that Gail was actually dictating this letter. And then it became like, "Dear Mom, thanks for being such a great mom. This is why I passed at this time." And then it actually outlaid some specific health considerations for her mom because her mom's got some, health issues going on. And Gail spent really a decade or two studying health and nutrition and wellness and medical knowledge. She had a challenge implementing it, but her database is massive.
Yeah. Sounds like my dad, frankly, but we'll go to.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, he was a doctor who did not take great care of his health. We'll just leave it there for the moment. Yeah. Yeah. Carry on.
And so I got this, and then by this time it was like 6 a.m. and I'm like, okay, great. I got the letter, and it crossed my mind. I'm like, okay, I should write it while it's still fresh in my mind, but I'm like, I still got to sleep 2 or 3 hours here. So I'm like, I'll write it when I get up. And but it was clearly Gail like prompting me to like do it. She's like, you got to do it. I'm like, no, I'll wait. And then just kind of instantly, I got this pressure in my left ear, and my body started heating up. And at that point, I was just too uncomfortable to sleep. So I just took that as her, like, kicking my butt out of bed, and I'm
Yes,
like, okay,
right.
I'll just type the damn thing or
Subtle
type the
hints.
darn thing, and
Yes.
then then I did, and then it went away.
Right. Funny that. Yes. Good. Good. Well, all right. I mean, this is already so extraordinary. So you were, as you and I were chatting earlier, Mathew, you said Gail's here. I feel her. She's saying hi. I'm saying hi to Gail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the divine timing of connecting with you and Gail, and I definitely want to talk and promote your book and your voice to spirit work and your group here on Facebook. But since we really are kind of in a season of death right now on the planet, and people are so afraid, of course, of death and dying, because people are afraid that they're going to disappear or their loved ones are going to disappear. And here you are, God bless you, you and Gail, somewhere along the line, you seem to have signed the contract and said, when and if this happens, this is the way we're going to work with this, and it's going to help people. So take it away from there. What else would you like to say about, or what else would Gail like to share with us about what we need to focus on in these times?
Well, Gail's explained quite a bit, because I've had many questions around this from
Sure.
people, and Gail's prompted me to do like sessions and readings with people in order to just to help them to exercise their knowledge, and she wants to basically channel all this information she has through me.
Great.
And one of the key things some people have asked is like, number one, this virus situation, what's going on with that, and also is it orchestrated, right? If you look into the alternative media, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. So in summary, I mean, in a nutshell, essentially what Gail's described to me, and she's kind of chiming in here a little bit as well.
Sure.
But
I just got a blast of energy in my body. I think that was Gail saying hello.
Nice. Yeah. Geez, yeah. Just as a sidebar, I have a friend who can really feel like angels and spirits energetically. Can't really communicate with them like through thought, but through emotion. And when I first talked to him, he was like just feeling the waves. So
yeah.
So the way she's explained is, number one, and this gave me a lot of consoling and understanding, and I say take it all with a grain of salt. I mean,
sure.
I can't prove any of this, right? Sure. It's just what I've been given.
Yes.
And the way she described it to me, and there's other spiritual practices that talk about this, but she gave me a very explicit kind of great analogy. She says, we're all the directors of our own lives.
Yes.
And we all agree, even before being born, the kind of roles we're going to play.
Yep.
And she used the phrase, all the world's a stage, from Shakespeare.
Yep.
And that's been emphatic. And the idea is like, this is literally like a movie, and we all have our own script.
Right.
And we're all Academy Award-winning actors, and we don't know it, right? We don't know it. That's how good we are.
Right.
And we come into this life with our roles, and we agree we're gonna do this. So the first thing about the fear and the fact that this might be orchestrated on some level, whether that's even true or not, if it is true, those people are just playing their roles like really well.
Sure.
And she's rest assured in me that there's really no evil out there. It's just people playing their designated roles, and that acts as triggers for our own spiritual growth. So if we have, discomfort or a form of suffering or a form of irritation with something outside of us, that's just an opportunity to go within and again, release that energy, predominantly using this kind of, a great methodology is what Lester Levinson left us in 1952. And I can explain a little bit more about that, but you let this energy out. It's like a release valve, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't have that type of training growing up, but it's, and I know it's a crude analogy, but it's akin to, the emotions that get stored in our body. A lot of people will hang on to it, sure. and for years, and then it often, and depending on what your form of study is, but often it can relate in obviously emotional heaviness, but also illness, also narrow-mindedness, because you're kind of clouding yourself with these emotions.
Sure.
But when you let it go, when you release it, and the crude analogy is, it's like when you gotta go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom and you just release it. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
But we don't learn that with our emotions, right? We don't have that level of training, so
Right.
we hang on to it, and it bogs us down.
Yes.
So that's really what she's been communicating to me more than anything, is like, hey, this is a great time to look at all that stuff. I mean, we're in isolation by force, so we're forced to look at this stuff. At least
Right.
most people are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so take the time to do that. And the other aspect of it, in terms of the death and the dying type of scenario, is just that it's already agreed upon. Like, this is the big thing that she explained to me, is like, people are sad. They feel like maybe the virus is taking people from their lives. And she's saying two things on that, actually. She's just talking to me now, reminding me, is one thing is, where the planet's shifting in terms of its consciousness. We're literally shifting into like a different, higher frequency version of Earth.
Absolutely.
And some people, their software in their body isn't compatible. So death is the exit strategy, but heaven is their reward, because they don't disappear. I mean, Gail's shown me what heaven looks like, and I mean, it's her rendition, and it's how my mind can receive the information, but it's amazing, right? Like, it's like a vacation. It's extraordinary.
Yes, I've never heard anyone complain about it, frankly.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to come back. That's the other thing. All the near-death experiences, nobody wants to come back. And they're always said, no, you got to come back if they come back. So it's encouraged. That's a beautiful cosmic picture. Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah. So it's, just to summarize that, Lou, she's really saying this time is a golden opportunity to go within, to expand our awareness, should you be spiritually inclined to do so. She's saying how spirituality is more of a necessity than ever before in any kind of contemporary time.
Yes, well said.
And here we are, having the ability to serve and help one another, and many people are taking advantage of that, which is very reassuring.
Yes. Well, there's divine timing about all this. I've been channeling for 25, 27 years, something like that, and I had my awakening in a Kundalini awakening in meditation, where the energy shot up my spine and opened up my chakras, and that connected me to the mystic and started me connecting with spirit and being more sensitive to all of that. I really feel like I've been getting ready for this moment my whole life, or certainly the last half of it. And as I said, when you and I were chatting earlier, you were born in 1987, I believe, and my awakening happened in 1987. So we're both going, well, that's kind of cosmic.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Brilliant. So tell us more about your work and your program, if you like, Mathew, and any other messages you want to bring forth here in the time we have today.
Sure, absolutely. So through my journey with Gail over the last few months, that started as an inspiration to create a program that could really help with the basis of spirituality for beginners. And when I thought of that, it was just like the basics. I mean, any form of spirituality, you need to have a go-to, a place that, when you have an ego storm, so to speak, or when you have those heavier emotions, you don't really got to think about it. You just have a platform that you go to, and that you can find peace and solace relatively quick.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started for me. And then as the program evolved, and also as as Gail passed and then started communicating these messages to me, it became more about not just, a beginner. And of course, beginner doesn't mean that you don't have any knowledge. Beginner's mind is really the ultimate destination of any spiritual practice, having the Zen mind, the quiet mind.
Right. I've said the same thing. I've said the same thing many times. Yeah. It's not about being an expert at anything. It's about being available for what's possible in any given moment.
I do my best just to forget all the information as soon as it's, out of me, because then that clears room for the next batch and the next batch.
Yeah, brilliant.
And, and I realized, and I'm actually working with another wonderful marketing mentor whose name is Joel. And he's been helping through a program he has to really articulate the message. And it was just yesterday morning, I think, early morning, where I got hit with this inspiration that the real name for this is voice to spirit, because that's what we're doing. We're giving a voice to spirit.
Brilliant.
Up until this point in history, it's been more of a smaller group of people that have had access to this spiritual realm. And
Yeah.
and now, just because of this transformation, the
Yeah.
frequency's rising, we're in self-isolation, people are looking within.
Yeah.
And they might describe it in different ways, but from my perspective, that conduit's opening up, and now we can give a voice to that higher intelligence.
Yeah, I've been saying the same thing for months, my friend. So it's a joy to hear all this. Yeah, I mean, it's been a trickle, and it's becoming a stream, and eventually it will turn into a flood of people who are willing to listen to, trust, and follow, and share their loving inner guidance from their heart and from spirit. Fantastic. So you've got your Facebook group, and people can join there and get a free copy of your ebook.
Yes. So the Facebook group name is Voice to Spirit, and it's number 2, numerical 2, Voice to Spirit.
Yeah.
If you just search that on Facebook, you'll find it.
Brilliant.
And I have an upcoming booklet. It's called Darkness to Light, One Man's Journey from the Shadows to Finding His Way Home. And in that, it'll be out this month. And it's really just my entire journey of, from childhood up until now, along with some really, practical ways to handle these heavier duty emotions that a lot of us are going through at this time.
Sure. Well, let's explore that for a few moments, if you like. I mean, I'd love to hear your story, and I just want to say another thing that honestly inspired me to reach out to you is you're a guy, and there aren't a lot of spiritual guys on the stage at the moment. So it's, and of course, what you've said about healing emotionally. That's essential. The rule book my guides gave to me about our world is that men are allowed to be angry but can't be sad, and women are allowed to be sad but can't be angry. And so women need to open their throats and express their truth and be heard and respected, and men need to open our hearts and express our feelings and come into our bodies.
Amen to that. And I mean, that anger was a huge theme for me right from the beginning. I mean, I was essentially born into an angry environment because my mom and my dad, they split when I was age 3, but prior to that, they were having issues. They never were really in sync with communication.
Okay.
And, my mom was, lived with a lot of stress, and she had a lot of volatility growing up, and a lot of, just a lot of, I'll just call it egotistical challenges, a lot of emotional challenges.
Sure.
And all part of the script, right? Like, no judgment. She's
sure.
a beautiful human being, and I have a wonderful relationship with her.
As you say, we all sign up for this somewhere, and then we forget that entirely.
Exactly, right? That's the mystery, I guess.
Yes, that's a good word.
But the kind of the height, when I first started waking up to all this stuff, well, I'll share it briefly, and then a little bit about the emotional side.
Yeah.
It was in 2010. And prior to that, I'd lived a life of a lot of social isolation, didn't have a lot of friends, kind of grew up that way with my mom. She was the same way.
Was it just the two of you, Matthew?
So it was just me growing up with my mom, and then I would visit my dad every second weekend for Saturday and Sunday type of thing.
So you were an only child. You didn't have any brothers or sisters.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I hit age 17, I discovered cannabis for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And that was a huge
on me as well.
Yeah, like a gateway, right? Like freedom. Yeah. I can think for myself. For the first time, I realized I lived my whole life out of fear.
Bless you.
And just stopped going to school even, and that caused a big issue with my mom. And so I ended up living with my dad, and I ended up I couldn't go to a regular high school right away, so I went to an alternative high school, and I got involved in the wrong crowd, even got involved in financial crime for a period of time, quickly learned it wasn't the road I wanted to go down.
You, my friend. Make many mistakes. That's my motto, yeah?
But then, and I got into drinking every day, smoking a pack of cigarettes, going to strip clubs, bars, you were
taking the tour, as we say, Matthew.
I was. And in 2010, by that time, I'd kind of broken away from the crowd, but I was still drinking and smoking. And I've been drinking. I was on my way home on the freeway up in here in the Toronto, Canada area, speeding, and I get pulled over for speeding. Ironically, I was in school for criminology at the same time. And when
Yes,
I
it is
got
ironic.
and, and when I got pulled over, the officer, I'm thinking like, I got to somehow talk my way out of this, because if I get any kind of record, I can't have a career in this field.
Yeah.
The first thing the officer said to me, he just said, "Get out of the car. I can smell alcohol." So I'm like, oh God, no room for negotiation here.
Oh, yeah.
So I refused, though. I lit a cigarette. I told him I'm not getting out of the car. And so he called for backup, and then he tried to physically pull me out of the vehicle. I was driving a Honda Civic at the time. My window was rolled down all the way, and he reached in through the open window and tried to pull me out by my collar. And instinctively, to kind of prevent myself from being pulled out, I grabbed his wrists to get him off me. And the moment I touched him, he just started punching me in the face, and came in the car, continued this assault, pulled me out. I was surrounded by a bunch of them. I got kicked in the ribs. I got kicked in the face, this whole thing.
Yeah.
And it took about 1.5 years. Thank goodness the whole thing, worked out and all the charges got dropped. But that's really where my self-contemplation started and my spiritual journey started.
It's like the laptop turning on. It gets your attention.
Yeah, thank God it's just laptops now and not, beatings.
Yes, not fighting the police. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good,
the lessons
evolution there.
easier.
Good progress.
Yeah, the lessons have become easier for sure. So,
bless you.
But then, just, to give people an idea of this emotional work.
Sure.
Lester Levinson, he first came into my life probably a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I wasn't quite ready for the work yet. So I dabbled in it, didn't really understand it, put it aside, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then
is there a name for this work in particular? Or?
So he just called it the method.
All right.
Lester, he just called it the method, and then he has a couple of key students that went on to kind of do their own take on it, and one of them that I've followed, his name's Larry Crane, who's also passed, but he created a body of work called the release technique, which is just that's what it is. It's an ability to release the emotions. And I just embraced it with Gail's situation. I embraced it fully and dived right in, and it's helped me tremendously in terms of, number one, letting go of the judgments, letting go of beating myself up for whatever reason, letting go of trying to figure things out, letting go of trying to understand, letting go of disapproving of myself and others, and then ultimately giving myself approval, giving others approval, just because it's this infinite ocean of energy. And approval is available to us. We don't need to have physical achievements or external factors to validate why we can approve of something. We can just put it out as an energy. We can choose to be love, choose to be positive, and it makes our lives abundantly more easier when we do.
Absolutely. Can you describe the technique in general terms? Or?
Sure. So, I mean, it's quite detailed, and there's different deviations of it, but there's a nice, easy way to start. And I'm going in depth with this in the course, the Voice to Spirit course, everything I've learned and applied. But you start with number one, if you're triggered by something, right? Yes. Generally, that's why people start with this stuff. And if you're triggered, generally it's because you don't approve of something, right? So you're probably judging it, or you it looks like it's not perfect, or it needs to be fixed, or you want to have greater level of control. So the first step is really, can you let go of that, whatever that is? Can you let go of the judgment? Can you let go of, often it's about beating ourselves up. We're trying to figure something out.
Sure.
We ask our mind doesn't know. We keep asking our mind. That's like looking into an empty filing cabinet where there is no answer. And we keep doing it. And then when there's no answer, then we beat ourselves up. So the first step is just to stop that.
Yes.
And then that's a little more specific. Then you kind of go more general, where it's really just lumped under the idea of disapproval. And as you get into the idea of like, can I stop disapproving of myself? Can I stop disapproving of others? Can I stop disapproving of Lou? Can I stop disapproving of the weather? I mean, one of my lights went out here, my studio lights, as I was talking, and I saw that. I'm like, can I let go of disapproving of that? Anything. Right. And the basis of it is like when you're gripping something, it's like a tight fist. Yes. And you're hanging on to it, you're resisting it. When you let it go, it starts to loosen. And it's not a thought though, right? Like it starts with a thought, but then you just kind of get into a flow where it's like, can I let go of it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And suddenly you kind of feel the whole stress of your body letting go. And soon enough, you'll notice how people start, responding to you differently. And the capstone of it all is the approval. And what Larry said is, if you give people enough love and approval, they'll be eating out of your hand. And I mean, obviously he's using it as a euphemism,
Sure.
but that's true because it's all energy and we're living in a hall of mirrors. Everything's just a reflection of us. So it makes sense that if you choose to be loving and positive at a deep core, genuine level, that's going to reflect back to you in some way, shape, or form.
Sure. Well said. Well said. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've had 33 years of working with the emotional body and the unconscious mind and subconscious programming. Yeah, to me, it really is the heart of people being able to feel and know, like you're saying, to take our power back is the phrase from my guides, that we can create a space of safety, love, and acceptance or support within ourselves. But in order to do that, we need to let go of the struggle, forgive ourselves and anyone else. But it's usually about our relationship to ourselves, because that's, as you said, that everything is a reflection of that. And then when you come back into that place of peace, then you're really able to, Gail is not in turmoil and tumult any longer. If you're in turmoil and tumult, it's not a good match. But when you're calm and peaceful, and she is peace and calm itself, then you're able to match up and line up. And that's the work that I see for all of us, is to learn to live from the inside out, from a calm, peaceful, loving place, and forgive and release when we forget and get triggered. And of course, everyone who's human gets triggered.
And Gail, even before she passed, left some wonderful messages on my Facebook personal profile. There's a video of a Toastmasters speech she gave, and she had this wonderful phrase. And she had studied in spiritual psychotherapy and learned a lot of things there. But she said our life is basically the evidence of what we're thinking. And she related it to health a lot. So she's like, if your body isn't your ideal body, that's just the proof of, how you've been thinking and how you've been living.
Sure.
But it's the same for our relationships. And so, we don't need to look much further than our nose to see where we're at with things.
Sure.
And if we're not happy with it, then it's like, hey, we have tools to transform that.
Right. That is the key, Matthew. I think of the quote from Alice Walker, who says, the way that most people give their power away is by thinking they don't have any. And the wonderful teachers and healers that you're referring to, and this soulmate connection with Gail, and now you being able to beautifully channel her love and her wisdom from spirit, that is really just such an incredible resource for people. So I feel really blessed to connect with you and to know you and to get to share you with the wider world here and get your energy and Gail's message out there so people can find you guys.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a privilege having this conversation, and I look forward to many more.
Thank you. Likewise. So, any final thoughts? Well, coming down the home stretch here, I'm in no mad rush, but.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Gail likes to sometimes cap it off with something.
I thought she might have a word or two for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's just, again, emphasizing the importance of embracing this time. She's bringing up this idea of like people going stir crazy. And I mean, she was isolated in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks prior to her passing. And I was going to share this actually because she'd lived her whole life escaping from her heavier emotions.
Okay.
And from all of her uncomfortableness through social, talking to friends and food. Those were her 2 main things, her 2 escapes.
Distractions.
Distractions. Yeah. And she made such an amazing amount of spiritual progress in that 2 or 3 weeks because for the first time ever, she couldn't eat because, she just wasn't, she was on all this medication, wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
And she couldn't really talk to that many people. And because of her pain, she couldn't really be on the phone that much. So she just went from like zero, I wanted to say 0 to hero.
Right.
Because, it was a phenomenal progress. And now she's saying, hey, we're all in that state where we can go from that 0 to hero.
Yes.
Because what else are we doing?
That's right.
there's no other choice, really. I mean, you can choose to keep suppressing, but she's saying, hey, she's just saying the time is now.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
There's some other stuff here that's kind of interesting that she's going into a bit, but
yeah,
she's talking about, well, actually, this is good. She's talking about depth of connection. And again, that was another Toastmasters little speech that she gave. And she's just saying, you know, because we're not caught up in that rat race as much as we were prior to this, there's a great opportunity to really strengthen that connection with others as well.
Yeah.
And more so, she's saying, you know, strengthen that connection with your higher self. So,
yes,
you know, the way she showed it to me was just kind of all these links going out where, you know, previously people have kind of kept close to themselves because they're, you know, whether they're in the ego or whatever. But now she's saying, hey, the energy of where we're at is just opened up people's hearts and minds to a whole new level.
yes.
We got to use that energy. Like, it's here for us to use. So let's take advantage.
Yeah. I think you and I are going to do that very thing, my friends. Yeah. And we're going to help others do the same. And yeah, that's just perfect. Such a gorgeous message. You know, I often, Matthew, I give the quote, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I really do believe, and everything you've shared and your heroic story, my friend, and Gail's incredible story here as well, and all the love that she is putting into sharing all this with all of us here is so beautifully expressed through both of you, and so greatly appreciated by me. I'm sure everyone who listens to this is going to get a lot out of this. So yeah, thank you again. So say it's the voice to spirit.
Yeah, voice, and then the numerical 2, spirit, and you can just type that right into Facebook, or you can go facebook.com/group/voice to spirit and just click join. And there's a couple questions. So right now, what I was inspired to do is the course itself, Voice to Spirit, is launching on May 9th. If people, they can either enroll. If they enroll, there's a whole bunch of bonuses just for enrolling. It's really low cost of entry.
Yes.
All the proceeds.
I will second that. It's very reasonable for what you're offering. Yeah.
And the proceeds are going towards Gail's situation because she didn't have any insurance just due to the timing of her divorce when she was actually officially divorced and the diagnosis. So we're taking care of that.
Yes. Great.
And then, but if people are, you know, unsure or whatever, they can access the first module for free and test it out. So they'll see that when they enter the group.
Brilliant.
So yeah, all are welcome.
Full speed ahead, my friends. Godspeed, as we say. Yeah. Thank you. Let's do this again soon. It's been a pleasure, Matthew. My love to you and Gail, and God bless you, brother. Thanks.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. I'm still chuffed over here that I'm interviewing a channel who's channeling his girlfriend who left only 3 weeks ago. He's got a program together about how to share this. He's getting messages from her, and he was born the same year that I had my awakening. All of that is just icing on my cake, I have to tell you. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so thanks again. Thanks a million. We'll leave it there.